podcast. But before we get right into it, I have to always introduce the man who is the godfather, the founder of the Hannibal TV, the Hannibal himself, looking mighty, mighty festive.
Yes, I hear it's very cold where I'm from in Canada today, so I'm very happy to be in Wichita, Kansas, where you can still actually walk outside with a sweater and there's no snow. So I'll take that. But that's why maybe I'm smiling. So happy Christmas to everybody out there, including you, Harry.
Absolutely. We're experiencing I think the calm before the storm in some areas, especially here in Eastern Ontario. We're going to get a whole whack of snow. So definitely envious of that climate that you have.
-15 to Labrador Retriever Mix, who's been seeing some unusual stuff in the sky lately, apparently, too. +10 in BC. You see, BC is the place to be if you're going to be stuck in Canada.
Absolutely, if you can deal with the precipitation. But did Santa bring you everything that you wanted this year, sir?
Well, I mean, we're almost at 407,000 subscribers, so we're getting like 800 new subscribers a day. So that's the greatest present I could ask for.
Yeah,
and I'm alive. After a couple hard years, I'm alive and healthy and getting back in shape. How's everything with you?
Just plugging along really well. About to head down as per custom and spend the New Year Eve and several weeks down in one of my favorite spots on earth. That would be Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where it's it's not, hot like Florida weather, but it's definitely temperate and sunny. And we get a couple hours more sunlight, which is always nice because it's sure dark here early.
Yeah, I notice here it's a little less dark earlier than it is in Canada too. Like Ottawa can start getting dark at like 4:30 sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's about that, if not a little bit before. Fortunately, we passed the darkest day of the year, but as I mentioned in the precursor, there are a lot of interesting items that we'll just jump right into. The first one being a story on Ric Flair. Former Ring of Honor owner Kerry Silkin posted this week and said that he wants his $41,000 back that he paid Flair for Ring of Honor appearances that were never fulfilled. He said, please, and I quote, "Please pay me back the $41K you owe me for failing to appear at 4 signings. This was one of the greatest wrestling heroes I had. Turned out to be one of the lowest people," and he used the term scumbag, "that I've ever dealt with. Nobody screwed me." We're talking Brett, Bruno, Bobby Heenan, Mick Foley, Rick Steamboat, and Dusty Rhodes. Everybody was a pleasure except Ric Flair. Flair owes me $41K for not fulfilling Ring of Honor appearances in 2009. Yes, I was a moron to pay Rick up front. That's my story, and it's sad but true. What do you think of that, Hannibal?
Well, Kerry and my dealings with them is he never responds to me anytime I've wanted an interview with him, so I'll take Ric Flair's side. I at least have respect for Ric Flair as a wrestler. And as far as Ring of Honor, I mean, that was a pretty worthless company by the time they sold it, and I'm sure he got a huge price tag from Tony Khan. So I really don't care about old news that he's trying to dig up to try to make himself relevant. When was that? 10 years ago? Why is this even in the news?
15. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, 2009.
To me, get a life, man. If that's the best you can do to get yourself in the news, and how slow a news week is it? I will admit that Ric Flair, maybe he definitely was a bad role model to me, but he's still one of the greatest of all times. And I don't doubt the story, but I mean, he doesn't owe the money anymore. You sold the company. You drove it into the ground. It was practically worth nothing. You probably got overpaid by Tony Khan whenever he bought it, which now, I mean, I don't even think they sold out to Hammerstein Ballroom, which would have been a legitimate sellout of 2,500, which I think Ring of Honor only had about 1,100, I think I saw for the Tony Khan pay-per-view that was there in a 20 million person market not too long ago. So I'm not really a fan of the brand. Never was really. I think the best point of it was when they had AJ Styles there, back when he was New Japan champion. Back around the time I beat AJ Styles twice in one night, when he was with there, and they had Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, all those. That was one of the peaks, but really, it wasn't really worth much by the time they sold it to Tony Khan, in my opinion, and he was probably overpaid for it. And again, 15 years ago, why are we talking about it like it's news this week?
Yeah, exactly. There was an interesting story out of Ireland this week where a fan got a hold of Ric Flair's number and did kind of a prank call where he booked him, quote unquote, for an appearance for $25K a day plus 2 first-class flights. And when he did a video portion to verify that it was indeed Flair, there were some young ladies around, and he was at the pool. Looked like he was having a few adult beverages. So what can you say now, except the Nature Boy is always going to be the Nature Boy, regardless?
Yeah, well, he is. He just got rid of his 5th wife. I mean, I saw pictures that looked like there were wedding pictures with those two. Sad that the stepson died, with his son also dying not too long ago. So that's 2 kids that he was kind of probably a role model to in one way or another, passing away. So that's sad. But the funny thing is, speaking of people getting Flair's number, when the King of Connecticut somehow had Ric Flair's number, and he actually got under Ric Flair's skin. And I'm seeing this back and forth messages between Ric Flair and King of Connecticut. That was kind of funny. But I mean, good for Ric Flair for being one of the most entertaining wrestlers of all time. And he wins my award for the best promo of 2024 for his pizza promo that ended up getting him released from AEW, from what I know, because they never used him again after that, which they should have. They should have, because that was the best promo, and he was really all over the place, but they wasted it. Another one of that company's mistakes. But Ric Flair, that's the most entertaining thing I saw in wrestling all year, if you want to consider that wrestling. So I'm not taking anything away from him, whether he's a good person or a bad person. As an entertainer, he entertained me with that pizza place promo. He entertained me enough that I even did a copy of it that you were involved with. That was a lot of fun to do in Kingston.
That's awesome. And I think the Academy hasn't voted yet for nominations for Best Short, but we got to be in contention with that. So got to thank Flair for that. But before we leave Flair, I just want to agree with what you said about AEW misusing him. You'll recall in Ottawa for Collision, when we were there and covered it, how many woos were there before the show? They were hyping the Ric Flair energy drink. It was a big deal. Then he was nowhere to be found and basically sat out what did they even do with him?
They had him in Charlotte without even advertising him when he hadn't been in Charlotte for years on the TV taping. That's just stupid. Then he's just going to surprise when they didn't want to make a big deal out of Flair being in Charlotte. Then they cut out one of his lines that may have offended some of these woke people. That's just a harmless line that a senior citizen is saying at this point. And yeah, as far as the guy saying that Ric Flair was a dick at the autograph session, he wouldn't do an interview with me either. And he had no line at an autograph session, but that was his wife, Wendy, at the time, telling him no. I think he would have done it if she didn't tell him no. But he isn't the nicest person, because, again, that was a year after I just did one of his training camps. And I was telling him that, and he said he wouldn't even do a quick 5-minute interview with me. So yes, he's an asshole as a person, but he's entertaining. And in the old days, I mean, I guess he was over as a heel so much because that was a real part of his personality. I mean, you don't get married 5 times and have 2 kids die if you're a great person. But as an entertainer, yeah, he was great.
Yeah, you can't that's been debated online as well, since some of the more recent stories came out. Is this going to tarnish his legacy?
Speaking of heel, thank you. I have one of the greatest heels of all time, Michael. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas to you.
And thanks for the view. The issue with Flair was that, is this going to tarnish his legacy? And clearly not. The man is who he is, and separate him as a person from the character. It's something that that I think all old school fans have done, and you have to respect that he's one of the greatest of all time, in my view, as a wrestling character, the greatest of all time.
Apparently, I'm gay too, Jack, which I guess you've been around me enough to realize that maybe there's a side of me that I don't know about that somehow Michael knows about.
Well, I can specifically attest to the fact that you're not, but not that there's anything wrong with that. It's a lifestyle choice. It's interesting that it's brought up here. I think we'll move on to another story. Speaking of AEW, I know you'd. I was interested in your take on this one. Tony Khan has finally confirmed that after 3 years on the air, AEW Rampage is coming to an end. Fans in attendance at the Dynamite taping on Sunday, when Khan came out, and he usually does his little shtick there that I've seen numerous times to hype up the crowd, said basically stick around for the final Rampage taping for I guess he said the foreseeable future. So that's an interesting yet albeit completely predictable event given the ratings. Now there was some you will also recall there was rumored that they would be introducing a fourth, fifth, whatever it is, show called Shockwave. That hasn't happened yet, but they're going with a reduced model, both in terms of TV exposure and venues. What's your thoughts on both those issues, going to smaller venues and then axing Rampage?
Well, I heard actually Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez talking about Shockwave, which apparently, even though they trademarked it at one point, there may have been some interest from Fox of possibly bringing on another show. But with the way ratings are right now, that seems to be nothing that's like, if it is going to happen, it's being kept totally secret at this point, and it's more likely than not, at least in the immediate future, that other show is not going to happen. For Rampage getting canceled, they put they could have put effort into it. At one point, it did a great rating for CM Punk's debut, but then they kind of gave up on it and just let it die a horrible death, which is beyond me with all the talent they have and how much they pay their talent. I guess from what I hear, Tony Khan doesn't like making his wrestlers work more than once a week. That's the rumor and innuendo, and it seems to be true. And a lot of times they don't even work once a month, to be honest. So they let that die. So I guess they just don't care. But I watch motivational videos all the time and business videos all the time. And how can you expect to do anything right when you're spread so thin as Tony Khan is, with the NFL, the soccer, all of these television shows? He can't keep track of it all, and he doesn't delegate enough. So it seems like it's getting canceled, and he doesn't care, and nobody really cares overall. So RIP to Rampage. The only good thing that ever happened on the show is CM Punk's debut. To my knowledge, I never heard anything else really relevant of it.
Yeah, agreed. Ivan, one of our super fans here, very knowledgeable individual, brought up a topic kind of early that I was going to talk about, but WWE very quietly axed tribute to the troops. And that was, of course, a sentimental favorite and part of their, which Stephanie referred to as their weaponized charitable endeavors. It's gone. I didn't really see a rationale for that. It's kind of strange for a company that's making, X number of billions of dollars a year to be doing away with that. What's your thoughts on that, Hannibal? Big deal or not?
Well, they're just the ultimate corporate company, and good for them. And I guess now that Vince McMahon's gone, it was like a personal thing for Vince McMahon to give back to the troops. And they're all, we can look at them. For everyone that says how great this era supposedly is, which, by the way, none of their holiday tour is sold out. None of their holiday tour, for how we keep hearing how hot they are. A lot of the places didn't even have really that great attendance for at least the pre-sale. I guess we'll see what the final is. But like they put prices up so high, much higher than when Vince McMahon was in charge, much higher. And of course, the tribute to the troops, canceling that. I'm a person. I did my 2 years of the reserves, so I served. I didn't do anything, so I have a lot. I know how hard it is just from my 2 years in the infantry reserves, and I didn't even serve anywhere overseas or anything like that. So I have truly respect for the people that have put their lives on the line. My grandfather was a prisoner of war in Dieppe. My great grandfather was in World War One. My other grandfather was in the Air Force in World War Two. So I have a lot of respect for military. So to me, I understand that it's business, but that's just that because you see the smiles on people's faces in that tribute to the troops where they get to meet the wrestlers and stuff. To me, that's just a low thing to do when you're making literally more money than ever. But that's what it's about. It's a corporation, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're still looking at austerity measures such as cutting down on house shows and axing endeavors such as tribute to the troops. But that's kind of sad. Speaking of
And making
WWE,
tickets too expensive for like your
yes,
average middle class kid to go to. Like my parents,
ridiculous.
what is the lowest price ticket for the Toronto show in the Sky Dome that has like 23,000 and a 60,000 pre-sold right now?
I heard it was in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 plus, if not
Yeah,
more.
for the nosebleeds. So who
Yeah.
would even want to sit in the Sky Dome in the nosebleeds for like a secondary pay-per-view? Yeah, it's John Cena's farewell, but like that just takes your average family with kids out of it. It's like we're only going to cater to the rich people now, it seems, as far and I think that's going to hurt them in the long run, not doing the house shows in the smaller towns where I'm sure you have great memories of house shows. I certainly do. The fan interaction is as the kid, you're going to eliminate like the personal connection that
Mm-hmm.
kids have with wrestling. And you know what? A lot of the fans right now are older like us.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's and even if you look at the AEW audience, I was looking at crowd shots from the Hammerstein Ballroom. It's all like middle-aged men.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
like the kid element is almost not there as much as it was when we used to go as kids for whatever reason. And I think this model will end up hurting them in the long run as far as getting new fans from a lower class level that will be longtime fans because now you'd have to be a rich kid to have your parents like pay for these autograph sessions to meet wrestlers or to get good seats. Whereas when we were younger, I mean, when I first started going to wrestling, WWF, you could sometimes still get ringside tickets as low as $12 and actually catch the fans going in and out of the arena. And that's even in the early 90s. So yeah, even the night after Montreal, the night after the Survivor. By the way, my Survivor Series tickets were $27 for Bret Hart against Shawn Michaels, and they weren't bad seats. The night after was $35 for second row in Ottawa, where that was the real screw job. Everyone that paid to see Bret Hart, showed.
Yep. Yep. I remember going to several Maple Leaf Gardens shows, including a house show, and I think it was '86 against Hogan versus Savage, and my dad and buddies and I were on the ramp, and the tickets were like $15. So even with inflation, I mean, do the math. I agree with you. They're making a huge mistake because going to a house show like that and seeing the wrestlers live and taking in that experience, that's what makes a person a fan for life. But
Yeah, and Labrador Retriever, I can guarantee you they're never coming to Cornwall again. Never. I can tell you that any of the smaller markets like Cornwall, Guelph, I highly doubt you'll ever see them in Kingston again. We just mentioned Kingston, Hull, Quebec, all the smaller cities in Quebec. You will never see WWE in those towns again.
heck, they were in Belleville when I was a kid, and I saw a house show there of Harley Race against the Junkyard Dog on top. So anyway,
And
it's
those
sad.
were cool. And you know what? It would be good to even like they used to have A, B, and C shows. I guess they just don't want to bother because it doesn't make them enough money and it loses money. Clearly, if these house shows were making money, they would keep doing it. But they're obviously not making enough or who knows if they're breaking even or whatever. Otherwise, they'd keep doing that. Otherwise, why would you stop it? For all these lower level talent that are new, how are you going to get any experience to get better or to find a way to get over if you're not getting the chance to test new stuff? It's going to hurt them in that way too, because AEW doesn't run any house shows either, and most of these guys just do nothing when they're not being used.
Yeah, speaking of hurting, Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer Radio spoke of the Saturday night's main event rating, and despite of a boatload of nostalgia from Jesse the Body being back to the Winged Eagle, the set being very throwback in nature. Even the refs wore the blue shirts. The rating was disappointing. Here's what Dave said. It was a terrible number for NBC. It did have tough competition, but with all the promotion of it, the number really surprised me. WWE had to be disappointed. Pay-per-view matches on a strong station draw less in 18-49, which we hear about all the time, than both Raw and SmackDown during the week. Now, they're inked for, I guess, 4 of these, of which the Body is going to be involved. What are your thoughts on that? Is it just the concept is outmoded in the modern era with the oversaturation of everything?
I think the main event was Kevin Owens against Cody Rhodes. Who would think that Kevin Owens is going to win that title? Why would I watch something where I know that the title is not going to change hands and it's just a Naglastia show? Yeah, do I really want to sit through? I don't know if it was 2 or 3 hours just to see like an old school style set when I know I could just flip it on YouTube after. And that's what I did. I watched a little bit here and there on YouTube, but nothing really grabbed my attention. And yeah, to me, I think even Meltzer said it because I heard him talking about it on Wrestling Observer Radio. Anyone could have predicted the finishes to all of those matches. There wasn't one match where the finish wasn't predictable. And at some point, even though it's fake, you want to, movies are fake, but you still don't want to know the end of the movie to watch. And for people that don't care about the quote unquote match quality, and I still will debate you, like, I don't like the style of matches these days with the spot fests and the over choreography and the moves that don't look like you can do without choreography and the leg slapping and stuff. It's like, so for me, the only thing that's going to make me watch is if I don't know the finish and I really want to see the finish of a match. Like if it had been Cody Rhodes against Roman Reigns, yeah, I'd want to see that. And there's one because I wouldn't know the finish, so I'd at least be semi-interested. Or like Cody Rhodes against CM Punk, some type of match. As I'll fix my scarf there, where I'd be interested to know. Which, by the way, here's something that I just will address about this. There's a video of CM Punk, Coco Beware, and Greg Valentine that aired on WWE social media, and so many people have put out there, oh, CM Punk just showed up to be backstage at Saturday night's main event. Do you guys really think that he wasn't paid for being on? First of all, he's making tons of money, and I'm not taking anything away from it. But people are like, oh, he went to this just to hang out with Jesse Ventura, Coco Beware, and Greg Valentine. He's clearly paid to be on pictures from WWE doing this and be in promos that air on their social media. Is it stupid that they didn't put him in a match? Yes, in my opinion. But like, don't act like he just flew himself out there and was hanging out backstage because he really wanted to hang out with Greg Valentine. Give me a break. And I love Greg Valentine, but give me a break, anyone that believes that.
But CM Punk was also in the news, not only headlining the main event of the forthcoming jump from Raw to Netflix against Seth Rollins, but there's speculation that he's finally going to get his WrestleMania main event, and that would be interesting to try and delineate who that would be. Kind of rolls into the next story about Cody Rhodes, though. There's fresh speculation online that he is going to turn heel and set up an encounter with The Rock on one of the nights of WrestleMania where he is the heel and The Rock is the babyface. What are your thoughts on that? And do you care about Cody Rhodes? I know I don't.
I think he might be better as a heel. I really don't know. I would like to see the belt off of him. That's all I care about. And we'll leave it at that. I would like to see, people will say he's old, but he's still he's in better shape than anybody, like to look at physically in the WWE by far. I don't know what he does or what he takes, but he looks amazing.
I can guess.
And it's definitely a lot of hard work. And he's the biggest star ever. And as a guy that works in wrestling, and wrestling, editing wrestling stuff is my job and stuff, I think it would boost wrestling if they were to make The Rock champion again. So no matter what this storyline going in, I would like to see The Rock back as champion.
And that would set up the long speculated Rock versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. I agree with you. Cody Rhodes, I think, notwithstanding the great story about finishing the story, see what I did there? I think his run has been lackluster as expected, but opponents such as Kevin Owens doesn't help matters.
He hasn't had any non-predictable opponents, and it's just been like, he keeps saying, oh, this is the Renaissance era. Renaissance of what? You're cutting out house shows. How great is business if you're cutting out house shows? There's more streams of revenue than ever, that's for sure. But you're not exactly setting ratings records. The big shows are getting good attendance, but clearly, like, where's your sellouts this week, Cody? And even they even added CM Punk to Madison Square Garden this week, and I don't think the pre-sale is anywhere near as good as it was last year for the Madison Square Garden where Punk wrestled Dominic. But yeah, Cody, it just seems blah. Like, okay, he's champion, he's the corporate champion, and there's no chance he's going to lose the title until he faces someone like The Rock or Roman Reigns again, in my opinion, or CM Punk. To me, no one else. They just won't put the title on anyone but them, let alone Kevin Owens. Like, give me an honest break. I know Triple H loves him, but with the roster they have and the guys they have on top, no matter how much Triple H has a hard on for Kevin Owens, he's a businessman and he knows that would have been a huge business mistake.
Yeah, agreed. What about the little news tidbit? Trying to figure out if this is a swerve or a story that's been leaked to put people off the scent. But it was out there this week that, according to a post by Sportskeeda, that WWE and Brock Lesnar have not discussed a potential timetable to return. Apparently, there's been no internal communications for some time between Lesnar and WWE, and that's that. But I find that kind of hard to, not kind of, I find it hard to believe given the money that man draws, and now the relationship between WWE and TKO UFC. Do you think there's a chance that he could give another run now that he's well over the diverticulitis that really cost him his match against Alistair Overeem with all the body shots? Do you think there's a chance Lesnar competes in the octagon again for UFC one last go at it, or is he destined to come back to the WWE, or will Tony sign him?
They're not going to let him out of his contract with WWE, and he's one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid. I think Roman Reigns might be close now, but they're not going to risk letting him go to AEW. He would have a very hard time at this point winning in UFC at his age. He's set for life and more for money. So the only way he would do it is if it's just a personal thing. But could he beat John Jones at heavyweight? No. It might draw well, but he would definitely not win that fight. I don't think anyone would argue with that. Or the English guy, who I don't remember his name, but the English interim champion that's supposed to fight John Jones at heavyweight next. He couldn't beat either of those guys at this point in his career. And they're going to bring him back during the Netflix era. For one thing, TKO doesn't care as much. He didn't do anything, for one thing. He didn't actually do anything, in my opinion. TKO doesn't care as much about bad publicity, but I don't think there will be any bad publicity out of it at this point in time. Everything seems to have died down. And why would they tell us, like, for one thing, in advance if he was going to do a return and they wanted it to be a surprise? Like, they're not going to say. And Brock Lesnar doesn't talk to anybody. He lives out on a farm in Saskatchewan. So he's not going to say. And remember, they kept the CM Punk thing a surprise. Why would they unleash that Brock Lesnar is going to return or not? I would expect he'll be back because they're not going to let him go to AEW, and he's a money guy, and Tony Khan's not would use him 100% if WWE let him out of the contract. He's known to throw money at a lot less people than Brock Lesnar that don't deserve it, and if he paid Lesnar a huge amount of money, that might be the one guy at this point that could help turn AEW around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see it happening though. I think he's a WWE guy through and through. He'll get well compensated, and that's a good comparison to draw between the stories that were out there about Punk and WWE not talking and blah blah blah, and then boom, he debuts. So that'll be something to look forward to because honestly, they could definitely use him in whatever capacity he's brought back. The final news item that I have here, Hannibal, is Sports Illustrated released this week their year-end awards. Have you been privy to any of these? I'll go through them for you and get your impressions. The men's wrestler of the year, they're saying, is Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, I would say the men's wrestler of the year is The Rock, because when The Rock had his little return to WWE, it had the most wrestling had buzz again. Like, I work everyday jobs as well. People know I'm a wrestler. They never bring up wrestling to me unless it's somebody that hasn't seen me before, but people that are used to seeing me all the time started asking me about wrestling again. Ratings were doing well. They were selling out week after week. They started removing the Titantron to cram even more people in. So The Rock definitely got the most buzz of the whole year and kind of put an adrenaline injection back into wrestling. And it didn't last. Like right now, it's on. How can you say Cody Rhodes is wrestler of the year? He might be a good hand and a good corporate guy and a reliable guy, but he's not igniting the business at all. I don't think anyone's going to argue that if you look at now and you look at earlier in this year, it's not, people are getting quite bored of it at this point. Hopefully, the Netflix reignites it. But even Meltzer said recently, it's on a level right now where it can either go up or down. And I hope it goes up. And I think they're going to put a full out effort once they get on Netflix to try and give it another shot in the arm. But I don't know how you could call Cody Rhodes the wrestler of the year when he didn't ignite, he didn't like boost life into it like The Rock did.
No, I think you're 100% right. That was a very dubious choice. Women's wrestler of the year, I almost said TNA, but AEW standout Toni Storm, who had that timeless gimmick. Not sure how many people really saw her, but it's kind of interesting that they went with her over, say, Rhea Ripley.
Well, again, I don't even follow that thing, but just for the sake of argument, Rhea Ripley is I don't even know anything about. I've seen the gimmick. I think it's a stupid gimmick. I know people like the gimmick, but Rhea Ripley is by far, and I don't even like her as a person with how she complains about having to sign autographs and stuff. But by far, she's the most over woman in wrestling right now with Liv Morgan. Could be second, could be first. But those two, you could say Liv or Rhea, but I would say Rhea, particularly earlier in the year. She may have died. I think she's died down a bit now, but it would still be Rhea and Liv. You can't say Toni Storm. That doesn't even make sense. I mean, look at the rating. How can you say a company that's hitting ratings lows and having shows canceled has the top female wrestler? Because it's not like everyone's talking about her right now. Like, didn't they just re-debut her on Rampage? That's the last thing I heard about her.
Yeah.
Like, why did they bring back the top wrestler on the third tier show that's getting canceled if she's so great?
And abandon the timeless gimmick. Breakout star of the year, they're saying Jacob Fatu.
I will agree with that. I like him. I've known him. There's a bunch of matches. If you search Jacob Fatu, the Hannibal TV, he's deserving of it. He worked his way to earn the contract, and he's been doing a great job. One thing I think that hurt his momentum was when they had him do the job to Cody on a Raw shortly after he debuted. It's like, this is not the 80s where people don't know what happens in dark matches. That was all over social media. And it's like, you can't have a newcomer do a job and people aren't going to find out about it. So I think that took some of the oomph away. But I would say he's the most over debuting wrestler to a major company this year by far. I agree with that.
Yeah, without question. They're quoting in terms of match of the year, which I think The Rock and Cody Rhodes, or Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, would eclipse this. But they're saying Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay.
Yeah, and I did see that. I heard about them calling that. But as you said, first of all, nobody even knows about Danielson and Ospreay, and it got a lower crowd than the previous year at Wembley. And as far as Ospreay's style of wrestling, it's very smart markish. Your average, for Cody Rhodes, you guys clearly know I don't like him, but he wrestles a more realistic style than Ospreay. Is like it's a completely gymnastic style, and I'm not hating on him if people like that style, good. But the older school fans do not like that style. It's like puke dust. The Rock, as you mentioned, he brought so much attention to coming back to wrestle, and everybody all over the world knew he came back and watched that match, or at least watched clips of that match. And as I said, I don't even like Cody Rhodes, but everyone was talking for a year about Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. And I didn't even necessarily like the booking of the match with all the interferences, but you would have to say that as much as I don't even like them, that was probably the most talked about match of the year and got the most attention. And this is an entertainment business. As I'll throw my scarf back around, this is an entertainment business. And like, the match that's going to get the most attention is the greatest match, and that got the most attention. I would say it's still even eclipsed the Rock's match, because I don't even really have much memory other than The Rock pinned Cody in it, but I don't remember any details of it. It was cool to see him coming back, but I don't think that match itself had really much memorable about it other than The Rock was back. But it's certainly, everyone was talking about it. But my pick would be Rhodes against Reigns. That's my unbiased pick for match of the year, just from the build up to it, the execution of it, and that people know about it. People do not know about this other match other than the super marks. And again, the crowd was 30,000 lower this year. How can you say that people cared about that match?
Yeah. The only thing I remember about The Rock versus Cody was they were outside for like 45 minutes. I'm exaggerating, but it seemed like forever, very long. They're saying story of the year, but I guess that's storyline of the year, the Bloodline saga.
Yeah, I can't really say. For me, the storyline, I guess, is The Rock coming back, which I guess, because that's the only one I've minorly paid attention to. So I guess you could say that's part of the bloodline. But to me, I think, as we said last week, it's becoming now the NWO Wolfpack. It's just getting so big. And Samoan wrestlers are great, but now there's too many Samoan wrestlers to keep track of almost. And it's just, I think maybe they'll put some more interest into it. But again, once the NWO got so big, it kind of just ran its course. And I think Bloodline is getting there, for me anyways.
Yeah, I think they've definitely jumped the shark. Show of the year, we don't even need to comment on this, was obviously WrestleMania. Feud of the year, which they called rivalry of the year, Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk.
Well, again, I would have to say, with the way it was built, Cody against Roman. But they built, I wasn't really into the McIntyre Punk thing because McIntyre just doesn't kayfabe enough. He never kayfabed it. You'll see Honky Tonk Man and Jake Roberts still kayfabing their feud. Piper and Mr. T were still kayfabing it up to the day Piper died. For me, McIntyre just doesn't kayfabe enough for me to give a damn about his stuff. But I don't think that match was as big as the Reigns versus Rhodes match. But I'm not taking anything away from it. People cared a lot about that, and I'd put it in the top three to give a unbiased assessment.
To answer Ivan's question there, Tag, and I'll jump down. I have never heard of these people, so I'm not sure what to make of it. But Tag Team of the Year are Fraxium, Fraxiom. Do you know who these people are?
I don't know who they are. I really don't know who they are. But I would say tag team wrestling. Tag team wrestling, I wouldn't say is at a high point right now. Honestly, there's none that really stand out to me. So, I know the names of some, but they don't jump out to me as being super over. So I wouldn't even put any tag teams over. But I follow wrestling and I read the news, and I've never heard of Fraxium. So I don't know. Who are they? Who do they wrestle for?
You got me.
I will say this, and here I'll just say it, and I don't necessarily. Well, I'll give it to the Hardys for taking the pay cut, going to TNA. They're back in TNA. There's a tag team I still know, and I know that they're still doing it in TNA for the ongoing future. So I'll give my uneducated vote to the Hardys as tag team of the year, because I think actually they're the most known tag team that's still active worldwide. If you ask 100 people about an active tag team, I think more people worldwide would probably say the Hardys still as far as an active tag team.
Yeah, no question. I know FTR were injured. I'm not a Young Bucks guy, so I'll go with the Hardys too.
FTR are just too small for me, but I won't take away that a lot of people know the name, and there's not a lot over tag team. I know the FTR, but to me, it's like the Tully Blanchard and Anderson. They were small, and it's like these are even smaller versions of Blanchard and Anderson, and they're playing, but they're a known team. I won't take anything away from them for that. I would say they're the. If someone had to tell me tag teams, you got to put two over. I've heard of the Hardys, and I've heard of FTR as far as active tag teams. I've heard of the Viking Raiders too, but they're the shits to me. So I wouldn't name them as a great tag team.
Yeah,
I lost all respect for them when they bumped when that who is that money guy? He did that dive and he totally missed everyone, and the Viking Raiders still bumped without being touched. I lost all respect for them as wrestlers when I saw that.
Yeah, you can't say it's a golden age for tag team wrestling right now. This is an interesting choice. Best on the mic. Yeah, I agree with you, Labrador Retriever there, but I'm biased. Best on the mic, Drew McIntyre. What?
I would honestly say CM Punk.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, he's been. I still watch promos here or there, and people just to show you I'm unbiased. I'll say CM Punk. I would say The Rock too, but CM Punk. The Rock has been. He's done electrifying promos and stuff, but CM Punk just over the course of the year has been more entertaining and less showbiz with his promos. I would put CM Punk first and The Rock second, in my opinion.
And just this past summer was the 10th anniversary, believe it or not, of the pipe bomb. So, yeah, he's definitely the standout there.
It's just with The Rock. The Rock did his singing and stuff, but to me, he does electrify people when he comes out with the whole Cody Crybabies stuff, and sometimes it's too over the top. And again, I don't like people that don't kayfabe, and I love The Rock, but in the same time he was doing that, he's doing other appearances talking about how it's a show and how he likes playing the heel character. So it takes me out of out of the heel character. I watched today Bad News Brown on the Arsenio Hall show, and I suggest people watch this. It's hilarious. He plays Bad News Brown the whole time on the show, and I loved that. Like, it was just the WWE character on the show, and that's just what made it so much better back then to me. Then to have him come on there and be like, yeah, I'm feuding with Jake, but I really like Snakes, and Jake's a good guy to work with. We have good matches together. We work well together. Nice to meet you, Arsenio.
Mm-hmm. Let's go have a selfie after our match and thank our opponent on social media. And the last category, heel turn of the year, Xavier and Kofi turn on Big E. We talked about this last week in terms of being a ratings. Well, it got a good rating. What do you think of it creatively?
I'm just not interested in the New Day, so I'm not a fair person. I can't comment on that. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that, because that's heel turn of the year. I don't know anyone else that really turned. So I guess if the New Day were building that up forever, sure, I'll give it to them just because I can't think of any others.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I used to enjoy that sort of thing. The heel turn that forever cemented me as a wrestling fan was Mr. Wonderful turning on Hulk Hogan after the Stud and Bundy match, and that big pile driver that I executed several times thereafter in the schoolyard and got into a lot of trouble. That's the greatest heel turn of all time, in my opinion.
And what got me into the wrestling was the Mega Powers exploding when Macho Man turned on Hogan. But again, I'm just not into the New Day, but I'll give it to them. That's probably the number one heel turn because I can't think of any others. Andrew's wondering if you've heard anything about a Raven documentary. There's a lot of Raven footage on this channel. If you search Raven, the Hannibal TV, I have not heard anything about that.
Neither have I. What would you have to say in terms of? I don't think the Observer year ends are out yet, unless I'm mistaken. But do you think Tony Khan will be named Promoter of the Year this year by Dave, or is Dave starting to take a more tempered approach to AEW?
Oh no, he will not be named Promoter of the Year. And I wouldn't like even. I guess he'll probably give it to Triple H, but nothing's been. I mean, they're making more money than ever, but to me, it's not like an Attitude Era or like a big something where you just gotta watch. Or even when people were talking about when you were just talking about this Roman Reigns' group that I always forget the name, Bloodline. When that first happened, people were like buzzing about it. I don't hear that with Cody Rhodes. And his promos to me are very stale and repetitive.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there, but that was a surprisingly meaty week in wrestling news for this holiday period. Hannibal, what are your hopes and aspirations for 2025 before we shut this one down?
I'll just bring up one more thing. I tried to watch this. I tried to watch Santa with Muscles yesterday because I wanted to do a review of this. And I didn't mind it when it came out, I guess. I guess I would have been in high school, and for whatever reason, I didn't remember it being that bad. But I really tried. I can tell you, I tried watching it the first like 12 minutes. Then I had to take a break. I came back, tried to watch another 10, came back. I couldn't even make it through another 5 to 7. So I'm sorry, anyone that wanted me to do a review of this. I bought this hat just to do a review of it, not remembering how bad it was. So there's my review of Santa with Muscles. It's out there for free if anyone wants to look it up. It's on YouTube, but it was terrible. For what I would like, the other thing I'll just mention quickly. This is what Hammerstein Ballroom looks like when it's full, but it has the full 2,500 people in there. And it didn't look like that for any of the 3 AEW tapings. And there you go. It actually holds 2,200. So they were getting between 11 and 1,400 in there. for AEW. I just think here's an interesting story: the fall of AEW. Yeah, they got 3 years secured money coming up. They certainly haven't made money for the first 6 years. So I don't know if the 3 years is going to make up, but it's interesting how bad it is. And like, again, one of the angles that they did on this show is bringing back the Costco guys, the 14-year-old fat kid and the father that hasn't wrestled for 20 years. Let's just compare it to this. Are the Costco guys worse than David Arquette winning the title? Because when David Arquette won the title, he was on Scream. He was going out with Courtney Cox. Friends was the #1 show at the time. He wasn't a fat kid. And everybody knew, not everybody knew him, but everyone at least knew Courtney Cox. These guys, it's like very niche. And it's like, it's not, why sign these guys? Like, this is like a one-time thing, and it's like, what now? We got to see continuous angles with these guys. Like, it's horrible.
No, I don't think you can argue that David Arquette was, and I've heard Vince Russo talk about this forever. He makes the point that, hey, it made the cover of USA Today after it happened. These Costco guys did not, won't, and it's just more of the super cringe. You know, a lot of people compare AEW now to the end of WCW, and having watched the end of WCW, now I don't watch a whole lot of AEW, but I think with stunts like this, whether you call it hot shotting, but it's not even hot shot booking, it's just a stupid stunt, I think it's far worse.
And Russo, I mean, I am no fan of when Russo was the title, and I've told him that. I've done I've done interviews with him where I like to each their own. But I will say that Russo was a heel and was known. Everybody knew Vince Russo because it made such a big headline when he came over from WWE to WCW. So he was known in wrestling. These Costco guys are not even known. And it's just like channel flipping to me. And it's like, with all the good guys you have sitting at home, Penta is about to, and I'm not putting him on some great level that he's going to like be the next Hulk Hogan or anything, but you have Penta, who you were paying to sit at home for months and months and months. And he's going to be more of a star in WWE, but you're subjecting us to the Costco guys. And you brought them to your Texas. Again, these are like New York people. They were at the Texas press conference for All In, which I understand it's like another 60,000 building. It only has about 10,000 pre-sold. It's not like this kind of booking is going to help. I mean, Jeff Jarrett was teasing bringing Beetlejuice back 25 years after Beetlejuice was over on the Howard Stern. It's like, it wasn't cool. May have been semi-cool in WCW back then, but now you're going to redo it when everyone's forgot about him and he's older? Yeah. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I'm tired of social media personalities, being used in such a manner. It doesn't build any long-term interest, and you hit the nail on the head. You've got all that talent sitting wherever and not doing anything. It's a head scratcher, but that's Mr. Khan for you.
Just like, I mean, Harry Smith, who I suggest people check out the interview. They won't sign Harry Smith, who looks amazing these days. Looks like one of the wrestlers from the 80s, but you're going to sign the little pipsqueak Dynamite Kid guy who you have. And Harry even said, you haven't done anything with him. They signed, he lost 3 matches. Like, he lost to one of the FTR guys, Jericho, and someone else. Then they sign him. And then he does nothing, maybe has a Ring of Honor match here or there. Why even sign these people when you could just pay them by the time they're not over at all? Maybe you could get over, but it's like between the Dynamite Kids guy that looks like a kid, legitimate, and as Harry said, probably needed more experience, but you're not going to sign Harry, who actually deserves really good money, and like, him going to Wembley, for instance, next time they return, it could still happen. But like, why would you sign that guy over Harry? That doesn't even make any sense to me.
No, not at all. And as I've said many times, the business needs a viable national number 2. And I certainly don't wish any ill will on AEW, but they continue to make some very, they being Tony, I guess, some very very ridiculous moves. But we'll have to watch what happens there.
It's bad for the wrestling business, sadly, because when wrestling gets stupid on television, people just don't want to watch it, and it paints the whole industry with the same brush. So a select few, and a lot of them that don't deserve it. There's a hell of a lot of people with big contracts there that don't deserve it. The select few that do deserve it, good for them. But overall, I don't know. If they keep going in this direction, I don't know if overall it's going to be good for the business, because the independent scene is far from hot right now. And the other stupid thing for me, AEW, I'll bring up, recently they've had Jericho on indie shows, Mercedes Moné, the Young Bucks haven't even been on TV in weeks, maybe months. They recently were at a New Japan show. Kenny Omega's been in New Japan. Like, why do they keep prioritizing these indie companies? It makes no sense at all. And I understand their Tokyo Dome show doesn't have a good pre-sale at all.
Yeah, it's got to change, or Papa Khan's money is going to run out. But we're almost at the top of the hour.
I don't think it's going to run out, but the indies might fully die, sadly.
Well,
or they're only going to go if they're funded by WWE.
He's got to get tired of. He's a business guy, and you got to get tired after a while of funding a losing proposition that doesn't show any signs of turning around. But we're at the near the top of the hour. Hannibal, is there any comments that you want to make about your aspirations for 2025, or a message to all of the great and expanding Hannibal TV fans?
Well, I appreciate all the support over the years. I think 2025 is going to be the biggest year yet for the Hannibal TV, 100%. I'm very motivated, and there's lots of reasons that I'm not going to talk publicly about why things are going to improve greatly in 2025 as far as getting interviews. By the way, I have Scotty Riggs coming up, former WCW wrestler, soon. But there's some other ones I'm working on. Of course, I will be doing more and more UFO coverage because I am very interested in that. Me as a wrestler, I will be coming back in 2025. You're actually going to manage me May the 3rd at ECW Arena, but I will have other matches as Hannibal. There's some other things cooking with me wrestling, whether it's just for fun here and there. I don't know, but definitely as far as the Hannibal TV content, it's only going to get better and better as 2025 goes on, and I'll be investing a lot more money into this channel. So have a great end of your Christmas, Jack, and thank you all the fans for joining us. We did this on purpose because we love talking to you guys, and we appreciate you so much. And we wanted to spend Christmas with you because I truly consider a lot of you guys my friends, especially the ones that have been here a long time. So have a wonderful Christmas, and thank you for your continued support.